Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Jeff Reinke and Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 most popular stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You could also subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine so you can get a notification whenever we go live, like on special days, like a Tuesday before a holiday when you go a little early, or you can subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. Anna, how you doing this week?
I'm doing well. I thought I would get a jump on this week's Thanksgiving festivities by stretching out my stomach and eating a giant deli sandwich for lunch from the Italian deli, and I'm about to die. But
that sounds familiar.
It's a long game.
Yeah, it's a long game. I tried to mix it up by going vegetarian deli sandwich, and then I ate half of it. And I still feel like I'm going to die.
So I did the same thing, yeah.
Also, that thing, I mean, I understand that you want to make squash like some sort of interchangeable deli meat object, but it slides. It slides, and then you put spreads on there, and it just one bite every direction.
Yeah, but I mean, it is like the best sandwich ever made.
It's fantastic, but like, it's served, closed face, but it winds up becoming like an open face salad almost by the time I'm done with it.
Yeah, and then it's like, it is the FDA in charge of reviewing
that's right.
Is the USDA.
So what was the difference? The FDA gets closed face sandwiches and the USDA is in charge of open face?
Yeah, I hope I don't have it backwards. I think the FDA regulates closed-faced sandwiches and the USDA regulates open-faced ones.
Yeah.
Wow. This is a little tidbit of knowledge I discovered recently that I had to share with the entire office because it's so weird, right?
It is so weird. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No,
it was so weird. And it's examples like that whenever when I'm talking with somebody and I'm like, you know what? Maybe our government could use a rethink and maybe they could find a little streamlining. And people are just like, do you know how difficult it is to run a government? And then things like that pop up. And I'm like, you know what, Jeff? Maybe we could find an efficiency or two there. Like, you know what?
Well,
give one of them all sandwiches.
I'm sure it is at the top of Elon Musk's list as the co-head of the Department of Government Efficiency.
That's right. Yep.
I'm sure that'd be one of the first things he tackles.
I bet they are going to have cool bomber jackets. I think that's one style choice. And there's going to be like a merch store where you can buy Department of Doge merch. That is a sad reality that we are weeks away from.
Yeah.
But it's the holidays. So, and, I managed to knock out the second half of that intro without batting around my microphone 2 or 3 times. So that's already an improvement.
Something to be thankful for, David.
That's right. That's right. It's the small wins on a day-to-day basis. All right. Before we jump into our first story this week, we have a word from our familiar sponsors at Orkin. This week's episode is brought to you by Orkin. Do you feel like pests keep finding creative new ways into your facility? You're not imagining it. Even if you are careful about managing pets, these crafty creatures are always looking for holes in your defenses. So, download Exclusion Basics, your first line of defense against pests. A new guide that gives you the best exclusion practices to keep pests outside your facility. If you're unfamiliar, exclusion refers to repairing, sealing off, or shutting down common pest entry points. Download this new guide right now and check out the 6 signs you might need exclusion services. All right. Even got a neat little infographic you can check out there. Really nice.
The infographic is something I pasted into the doc. It's actually the difference between what the FDA and USDA have jurisdiction over.
Oh, gotcha. So these are things that are being attacked by these pests. No, so this is the infographic.
Possibly, yeah.
In terms of the separation of duties?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
It's really good. It's just so confusing.
Perfect.
It's so like... Anyway.
No. I mean, I think will it tie into that first story, right?
Yeah, I just want you guys to know that if your poultry products or broths from domesticated birds, if that product contains less than 10% of giblets, fat, and poultry meat, then the FDA oversees it.
Okay.
More than 10%, the USDA.
Wow. Like what kind of lab? I mean, I'm sure there are labs where they are the decision maker. They're essentially the judges in a fight as to who the decision goes to, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the FDA can exercise jurisdiction when they deem it appropriate too, so they can override the USDA. It's just I've never enjoyed an infographic more than this one.
Yeah.
Because it's so strange.
You probably could have stopped that statement at, I've never enjoyed an infographic. You just stopped it there.
Until
that's
today.
not true. Come on. It's like making me learn with pictures.
Sorry, Mr. NTSB report guy over here.
Yeah.
If they
Then again, though, this
issued,
does feed into your love of math.
it does.
Yeah.
Love and extreme proficiency, Jeff.
Yes.
What I like is picturing this infographic at any facility, and they're trying to figure out what type of bird they're working with. And they're like, they don't actually know what the bird looks like. They're just like, well, we don't know what the bird looks like. It's all meat to us. What are we working with here?
It's all meat to us.
I don't know the giblets percentage.
Yeah, I don't know how much
Who do I call?
How much squab is in this? Well, get someone on the USDA on the horn and they can help sort it out.
Please explain it to us.
Yeah, no, we'll post a link to this on Blue Sky because you need to see this.
Too good.
Yeah, it is a tool for all, especially in the holiday season.
It's good to know the FDA is watching out for snake meat.
I missed that one. And sandwiches are the closer on this one.
Yeah, yep.
Man, snake meat. What was the one? The Burmese python fillets. Oh, man. Well, let's jump into our first story, see where it lies on this flow chart. The FDA accuses toothpaste maker of bacteria-tainted water supply and mold. Tom's of Maine makes natural products like natural toothpaste, natural deodorant, and natural baby care products. Well, the company was recently warned by the FDA for having too many natural products in unnatural manufacturing areas. Earlier this month, the FDA sent the company a warning letter that suggests some of Tom's toothpastes were contaminated with bacteria. The FDA says water used for processing several toothpaste formulas contains multiple types of bacteria. Besides the bacteria, an FDA investigator also observed a, quote, black mold-like substance at the base of the hose reel. And that was about a foot away from equipment that made contact with end products. All of this led to the FDA to conclude that the company did not keep its plant in a good state of repair. The company, which is owned by Colgate-Palmolive since 2006, blamed the bacteria on, quote, a laboratory error. The FDA rejected that claim, saying the investigation stated no lab errors were identified. Tom's says it always tests finished goods before they leave the plant and stuck behind the toothpaste's safety and quality. The company has hired water specialists to evaluate its systems and has implemented additional safeguards to ensure compliance with FDA standards. The company is also making capital investments to upgrade the plant's water system. Anna, can Tom's rebound from these serious allegations?
Well, I don't know. This letter being made public will most certainly generate a tremendous amount of damage for this brand. That's clear. I mean,
not just this brand, but like toothpaste. I mean, I went to brush my teeth this morning and I was just like, I remembered our moldy toothpaste coverage and I'm just like, you just really examine the top of that cap, make sure you're good to go.
So you think that people are going to stop brushing their teeth based on this report alone?
No, I'm just saying that if it makes anyone think twice about toothpaste in general, that Tom's is up against it here.
Yeah. Well, and we've seen other companies with facility issues, where that's led to massive declines in sales, even without a recall. And right now, to be clear, there is no recall. This letter was posted by the FDA after Tom's was basically given a chance to remedy the issues that were discovered in this inspection, which took place in May, to which the FDA says that they did an inadequate job. And that's really what the letter is about. And to be honest, I think it's defensible if consumers are outraged by this.
Yeah.
A little bit. Because the bacteria and the pathogens that they've identified, they are very serious. Some of them can cause pneumonia. Some can cause infections that are said to be antibiotic resistant in some cases. So really serious stuff, right? So the FDA has also said that they want assurance from Tom's that there's not been any cross-contamination. So that the products that they had identified a certain batches and types of products that they found these bacteria and pathogens in. They just want to make sure that, for a factory that makes and markets products towards young children, that there's not other stuff in the mix that they're not seeing. This is a very big deal.
Yeah, you don't want black mold on the baby.
You don't. And this type of warning letter, in my understanding, is basically the FDA's way of saying, like, this is it. Like, this is kind of their last step before putting this factory potentially on hiatus, shutting it down. Or if the FDA wants to issue a recall, they can. That's typically done voluntarily by a company, but it's not unheard of for the FDA to sort of step in here and force this if they feel like they have no other choice. I think in Tom's case, as soon as they issue a recall, they sort of acknowledge this problem that they say does not exist. They're saying that they're batch testing all of their products, that they haven't seen, any of these bacteria in their products as they're going out the door. I guess that's what's most alarming to me, is that there seems to be such a disconnect between what the FDA is saying and what Tom's is acknowledging. Yeah. And it's really hard to take Tom's side on that when the FDA is the FDA. And if you look at the paper trail on this, like, these are problems and systems that have gone back a couple of years now. So that's concerning to me, what appears to maybe be like a chronic disregard of good manufacturing practices here. I think toothpaste is classified as an over-the-counter pharmaceutical. And so, obviously there are requirements, and I think all of this should be concerning to a consumer, recall or not. Yeah. We'll see what happens in the coming days or weeks, but they do not have much time to figure this out.
I think you put it best when you said a chronic disregard for good manufacturing practices, because what bugs me the most is the time, how much time they were actually given and how much of insight they were given from the FDA. Like, you need to fix this. And just haven't.
And these letters do not have to be public. Yeah. Like, a warning letter is like, hey, we're mad. You need to move on this. I mean, it is, like, we're going to put this out to everybody because we're not seeing the response from you that we feel like we should be receiving at this point as a regulatory agency. And so that is alarming to me as well.
Right. So, Jeff, we were already at the step where there was the initial threat from the parent, right? And now we're at the second stage where it's like, hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to tell your dad. And then, the next step is where they combine and like really create some change in the household. I don't know. I was really working on that. And it's just like, I made it halfway and I'm like, but are you as frustrated with Tom's here and just what looks like kind of a pattern of disregard for good manufacturing practices?
Yeah, it's pretty, when you've got black mold growing next to a piece of equipment that is actually going to be used for a product that goes in someone's mouth. Yeah, that is blatant disregard. And usually I'm kind of tough on some of these regulatory agencies, but if you read the FDA's letter here, it's impressive. Their tone is not passive in any way, shape, or form. They go point by point, and each paragraph starts with, your response is inadequate. Yeah. Could not be more plain, more straightforward in terms of what this company needs to do in terms of fixing these problems and how significant they are. The problem is when it gets down to what the FDA can actually do to them, they talk about, well, we're going to take away your ability to export product. We're going to take away your ability to maybe release new products, things of that nature, which to me doesn't put a ton of pressure on Tom's to do something right now, which is what it needs to do. Whether it is remediating everything in that factory. They said in their letter, their response to the FDA, they said, well, we cleaned up the room. Yeah. The FDA said, no, you need to clean the factory, Yeah. So if they're not going to take those types of steps in a more expedient manner, I think you need to go to the next step. There's also a part of this too, where there was like 400 complaints about a particular product and there was no response. Yeah. There was nothing that was done because it didn't exceed the threshold that was set up for them to take certain action.
Yeah. That's a lot of smoke.
It's ridiculous, and it is a lot of just sort of transferring blame. They've mentioned the thing with the lab that the FDA could not justify. I didn't know where that came from. It was kind of like, it was the guy in the lab. It wasn't us. It wasn't on the floor.
Yeah.
So a lot of weak commentary from Tom's here in their response to the FDA. I think you need to go to the next step, which in my opinion isn't talking to consumers. It's not sending them a warning letter. It's going to the retailers that they work with.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before with some of these over-the-counter pharmaceutical products.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the place when you look at Walmart, when you look at Target, when you look at Kroger's, which are the three biggest retailers, that's 15,000 stores.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stakeholder input that I think you could pressure talking to those folks and sending those individuals. I did the thing with
Welcome. Yes, it happens.
Sending this letter out to those retailers and say, hey, did you know your supplier has this going on? Maybe you want to talk to them before you put their product in your stores.
Well, and not just that, but maybe, hey, remember when all that those generic eye drops went bad, and then there was the lawsuit that you were also named in because they were on your shelf? And Jeff, the one thing for me too is, a lot of people belabor regulations in food, beverage, and health and beauty aids. But I think this is a good example of how all the regulations really kind of just gave them so much rope, just over and over again. Like we laid it out for you. Just all you had to do were fix these things. And they're like, nah,
basically,
or they said, we did, but not far enough. Anna, to me, this really reminds me of Boar's Head, right? Because as of last week, the Boar's Head deadly outbreak is finally over. It's been declared over. 10 people died. 61 people were sickened across 19 states after they ate listeria contaminated Boar's Head products. And now that entire brand is toxic. Mm-hmm. Like, I triple check if we go to buy something from the store to make sure it's like not even adjacent to it. When I talk to other people about it that are normal Boar's Head consumers, they say, oh, no, like it's, they tried to pin it on liverwurst, but they're not buying any of the products from that brand, period. And I think Tom's needs to go out of their way to make sure they don't wind up in sort of a similar situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anything were to happen here, if somebody were to get some bacterial disease or, God forbid, if someone with a compromised immune system or a child or something has a really, really terrible outcome from that, that could tank their entire business. I mean, look what happened with Boar's Head. Yeah. I mean, that business is done. I mean, nobody trusts that brand anymore. And it doesn't take a lot to lose trust in a company, especially if this stuff gets laid out in an FDA letter and everyone knows exactly what's happening behind the scenes. Is not a vote of confidence for that brand.
Do you think that if a brand labels itself as like a natural product or more, or as a better for you alternative to other products on the shelves, do you think consumers are not quicker to turn against it, but like maybe a harsher critic because they expected more?
I think any product that you put in your mouth that's got bacteria in it, I would judge harshly.
Yeah, like if it was Crest, it'd still be bad.
I would still be mad about that.
I think they're going to hold on to that resentment longer and harder than if it's if it was a Colgate branded product, for example. There you can see, well, it's a big company, they're going to fix it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the perception with somebody like Tom's of Maine is, well, this is more, like you said, it's organic. It's more of a homegrown feel to it.
Yeah, it's a higher end product.
If they screw up, like I think it is more likely to be because how do they come back?
But they are owned by Colgate.
I understand. Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying the perception from the consumer, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next story this week. Radical Jaguar rebrand. A new logo for that rebrand. All spark ire online. Jaguar is rebranding. And the British luxury car maker slowly pulls back the curtain. The public is remaining skeptical. For example, a new promotional video is being criticized because it shows models in brightly colored outfits, and there's one thing missing from it: a car. The rebrand, including this new logo that's about to come out, should launch sometime the week of December 3rd during Miami Art Week. The company plans to unveil a new electric GT model. So, what should we expect? Jaguar's marketing promises to, quote, copy nothing. We're here to delete the ordinary. Go bold. To copy nothing. America's Funkle, Elon Musk, jumped into the conversation, writing on X, do you sell cars? Even the company's iconic, quote, leaper Jaguar image is going to be reimagined. Some, like Charles Taylor, marketing professor at Villanova, says the marketing or the promotional video strikes the wrong tone and makes the mistake of not using the brand's heritage as an elegant sports car manufacturer. Anna, by copy nothing, should they have also abandoned everything?
It's marketing is a funny thing.
Mm-hmm.
What did you call him? America's Funkle?
America's Funkle, yeah.
America's fun uncle,
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk. Elon Musk, I think asking if Jaguar sells cars was particularly poignant to me because we reported in August, and I don't remember if you guys remember talking about this on the podcast, this interesting story about how Jaguar was going to phase out its gas-powered vehicles in the UK for regulatory reasons before its new EVs were ready, leaving about a year's gap where they were not going to have any new vehicles to sell in England.
Yeah.
At the time, they minimized the impact of that and basically kind of rolled it up into this ball of, our EV future is going to be this complete rebirth of the company. Well, maybe this is the rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, it feels a little ridiculous to me that consumers, I don't know. Consumer backlash is annoying to me. Like, you can't feel like a brand is beholden to you to maintain a certain tone or characteristic forever. That's like, you can't be mad over a new logo. That's dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, but many businesses, I think, like a Jaguar, they find themselves at this crossroads where they don't want to be left behind or be viewed as like old and dusty and your grandpa's whatever, but they also want to cling to some of that nostalgia inducing, the relics of their legacy, like this hood ornament that everybody knows. It's not an easy place to balance. And I think that maybe they needed a few more focus groups on this before they rolled it out. Adding to that, I think this speaks to the power of marketing and how it can make or break a sales year, or even more than that. They mentioned Tropicana in this article about how when they changed their packaging, it was like 15 years ago.
They lost the orange.
Yeah, they took the orange with the straw out, and it actually completely tanked their sales to the point where they had to, they had lower earnings. People say that they put it in like the marketing textbooks after that of like, it was so impactful to the industry about like what not to do.
No one knew where to put the straw anymore.
Yeah, I guess. How do you drink it? I don't know how to do it.
What's in here?
Unscrew the top.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, what I thought was funny about that is Tropicana just did that again on a like lesser scale. They redesigned their bottle, the shape of their bottle, and it had to do with, I think, shipping and trying to make the bottle easier to ship. It will cost them less to ship. And anyway. But it also like generated a ton of backlash against their core customers because it didn't look like a carafe anymore, so it didn't have like the long pour.
Okay, wasn't as easy to pour.
Wasn't as easy to pour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it can have a real impact on your sales when you do this kind of stuff. So you can't just do it like, hey, this is a cool idea.
Yeah.
But anyway, it feels a little like the unforced error that we saw with Tropicana, considering I don't know. Maybe they could have, if they're changing their entire product line, maybe leave something the same. But, what do I know? And then, I think the last thing I want to say here is just, this whole story I thought begged the question a little bit, which is when the story about Jag taking a year off from selling vehicles in the UK initially broke, we talked about how it felt like that couldn't possibly have been the plan. That the company's strategy was probably not that, but then this happened and they kind of took this screw up and couched it in this like, well, this was our plan all along. And if the brand is capable of making that kind of misstep there, I just feel like maybe this was not fully tested. Maybe they just didn't like talk to enough people about it and they're like, let's try it. And then it was terrible. And I don't know. I mean, they're kind of like being very defensive about the marketing campaign now, like the leadership at Jaguar.
Definitely. And in some cases, rightfully so.
Well, sure. But like, I also wouldn't be surprised if between these two very strange things that have happened for the company in the last year, like if we don't see some executive reshuffling, because it just, I don't know. It seems like a lot more than you hear about Jaguar in a given year, and both negative. So I don't know.
True. I mean, I wouldn't chalk this up with necessarily negative. I think this definitely fans the flames of consumer outrage and trying to go viral for whatever reason. And different from Tropicana. Tropicana is something that everyone, can vote with their wallets and just not buy anymore. And for whatever reason, because they don't have an orange with a straw on the picture, people are just like, that's not for me anymore.
Yeah, right.
But whereas for Jaguar, the, let's say, pool of consumers in the world is much smaller than who's buying OJ. And, maybe by getting the Jaguar name in all of their mouths or on all of their screens, maybe it's helping with Jaguar's resurgence, sort of in kind of getting the message out there that like, hey, something new is coming. And it's so wild. Everybody hates it.
You think us talking about it is making me richer and now I can afford a Jaguar?
Not us per se. Maybe once this goes viral and the tens of cents in YouTube money come raining down upon us.
Tens of cents.
In a funny tinkling sound. No, it was, I was just thinking, I don't know if you thought the same way, Jeff, but like, it seemed not that like Jaguar was trying to do
Spoiler,
this.
he doesn't.
No, I just think it's funny. You are really, you talk all the way around it, man.
All the way around?
You went all the way around that one.
Well, I mean, you got to see every side.
No, it's very well done.
Yeah.
I actually do agree with you. I think that
Which
this
part
did
of the circle?
No. Yep. I actually think this did exactly what Jaguar wanted it to do, which is to get people talking about Jaguar. When you let's look at Jaguar independently, because actually the company is Jaguar Land Rover, right? You got basically two brands here. Land Rover's doing well.
Yeah.
Land Rover is profitable. It's increasing in sales. You're looking at Jaguar as a brand that in the US in the last 15 years is down about 300% in sales. When you look at Europe in their home field, they're down about 400% in sales over the last 5 years. They are hemorrhaging market share to BMW, Mercedes, and even Porsche because they all fall within that same price point. Plus, when you look at Jaguar, it has a legacy of engine issues. Basically, you either like the way a Jaguar drives or you don't because it idles kind of funny. It just drives very differently. And a lot of people don't like it.
Yeah.
Especially when you can go to one of these other luxury high-end vehicles and you don't deal with that. It just goes.
Right. Yeah.
So Jaguar has an issue. And I think a lot of this backlash is coming from all of those consumers. You said consumer backlash. I think they would love to have consumer backlash because that means they have consumers. They don't have that right now. So all of this backlash is coming from people who were not going to buy their vehicles or haven't been buying their vehicles. I think they did this to get people talking so that they can say to potentially a different brand of customer or a different target group, hey, maybe this is different than before. I should maybe look at this, whereas I wasn't going to previously.
Yeah.
I think it did because I think this brand is at that desperate of a stage. I mean, they're trying to convert over to an electric vehicle company and be that going forward. Man, that is a huge dramatic shift from where you were and, again, what your legacy customer was doing. So I think they took very dramatic actions intentionally. I think they were anticipating this. I think they knew this was coming. Maybe not to this extent. Yeah. But they've also got people who are touting this campaign. Forbes wrote an article saying this was genius. Yeah. I'm not going to go that far, but if this was their goal, to change the mindset and get people talking about their brand, mission accomplished. I still would have thrown a car in there, So this is a little bit off kilter, but I guess what I'm almost doing what you were doing. Personally, I wasn't crazy about the ad. It didn't inspire great perceptions of their brand, but from a pure marketing perspective, I can get what they may be trying to do.
So is that how you're saying I talked around it, where like the ad wasn't for me, but I get the intention?
Yeah.
Okay. Because normally
I'm doing the same thing.
I'm doing a little bit more zigging and zagging. But okay. So what was your initial reaction? I mean, again, we're talking about a 30-second spot here.
The initial reaction is, what the hell is this?
Yeah. It reminded me of like a bad Saturday Night Live skit where I was just like, did I miss it?
But I mean, like, are you guys arguing then that Jaguar is deliberately like alienating their existing customer base and just planning to start from zero as an EV company? Because to me, that's a terrible idea. There's so much competition. You see how much money a company like Mercedes-Benz, who's a competitor of theirs, has invested in like hypermiling technology. They have some really, really efficient EVs that are coming on the market very soon. BMW's way ahead. Like, I don't see how that makes any sense from like growing your market by like taking it completely from scratch. It doesn't make sense to me.
I didn't see it as alienating their base either, because it seemed as this like high-end artistic concept that maybe only a Jaguar customer would get.
Well, yes, I do, Anna. I do. Honestly, I think that is what they're doing. I think this is a last gasp sort of attempt to get new customers. And yeah, I don't think I don't think they cared about their existing customer base because it's not supporting it right now.
Yeah. What do we have to lose?
It's okay, but a lot. I mean, like, this is that would be bold to take that tact. I just think there's so much competition in that market, not just for like that small niche of what is a luxury buyer, but then also the EV market and all the money that's been dumped in there by your competitors. There's a lot of competition.
But if you can't beat them on quality, you got to beat them on something. You got to stick out in their head.
You got to beat them on noise. You got to get
style.
Funko. You got to get Funko retweeting about you.
All right, well, show me the car then.
It's coming next week. Next week, see? It's just building the anticipation. Okay, when you watched the ad, what'd you think?
Same. I was just like, oh, all right. I mean, like it was meaningless to me. It just felt like, I don't know, like setting the stage, but there, like maybe I'll see your second part of this. Maybe I won't.
I think it definitely made more sense in the context of a release during Art Week, or a fashion event. Needed a little bit more of that context wrapped around there. I thought the soundtrack was a jam. Wanted to check that out for a little bit of background noise as I was working. I also fear that we're entering a time in which anything seen as artistic, or that warrants any sort of interpretation is just labeled as like going woke. Like if somebody doesn't understand something, they're just like, yeah, go woke, go broke. And just like, well, it's a high-minded artistic concept of a, 30-second spot. And they're like, yeah, it's woke. It's
did people say woke?
Oh yeah. No. So, okay. Jaguar's managing director, Rawdon Glover, has been defending the company's rebrand and calling out a lot of people for, quote, vile hatred and intolerance, especially directed at the models because, they chose some stark personalities to be in it, and I think intentionally. Quote, if we play in the same way that everybody else does, we'll just get drowned out. So we shouldn't turn up like an auto brand. This is what Glover told the Financial Times. So in that sense, this is a real win. And it is not tolerable for people to just get angry because they see faces that they automatically put judgment upon and then judge the brand for it. It's just an ugly place to be.
I think that's just overthinking.
Yeah,
it's just either a good or a bad ad.
Yeah.
That's really all it is to me. But
no, I completely agree. And it was just, that was wild to me, where it was just like, not only do I hate this, but I hate the people in it, and I hate the people that made it. And as a result, I'm never buying a Jaguar on my completely average salary. All right.
By the way, base Jaguars, not as expensive as you'd think. Yeah. I mean, still, a tier maybe up there, but they've come down a little bit.
Can you hear or read the word Jaguar in any context without hearing Jaguar? I mean, they did such a good job with that.
Agreed.
All right. Our next most popular story. Sewage beer highlights water scarcity and innovation. New Brew is a beer product made in Singapore with New Water. New Water is treated wastewater that is part of a national campaign to conserve water. The drink, which United Nations Climate Talk attendees called, quote, sewage beer, is one of many examples of climate and environment-related innovation. The product underscores a massive problem as climate change accelerates. Drinkable water. It's important. Singapore is a leader in water management and innovation, well, because the island of 6 million people has no natural water sources. The island imports water from Malaysia and has national strategies for catchment, desalination, and recycling. Water demand in Singapore is expected to double by 2065. So, New Brew was made by a local brewery in 2018. Now it's part of a nationwide effort to push the acceptance of recycled water. The brewery has made some 15,000 cans of it, and they cost about $5 per can. So, Jeff, after a hot summer night playing softball, sit down on that bleacher, get ready to watch the next game. Would you crack a New Brew?
To be honest, I don't know if I'd want to be the first one.
Yeah.
Like if somebody else didn't, like, yeah, it's fine.
Just like throw it. Hey, Zol, got one for you. No.
You know, I think a lot of this, and the thing with Singapore is interesting. Like I had no idea in terms of their water challenges, importing half of their water.
That's crazy.
That is insane. And they're hoping this new water can basically be a solution for upwards of like 40% of their water supply. If they can get this going and get acceptance for it, obviously the challenge is sort of creating a normalization. Like this is okay.
Yeah.
This is something that, and when you look at that process, when you look at, psychological theory or anything else, it's you have to do it over and over and over again. And if there is one thing that people are really good at doing over and over and over again, and I can attest to, it's drinking beer.
Yeah. And not necessarily good beer.
Yeah. Fair, yeah. Busch Light. So
Yeah, that's made with toilet water already, right? So
Pretty sure. Yeah.
special shout out to listener in front of the show, John Phillips. Yeah, we're all anti-Busch Light here. Except David.
Yeah. I'm anti all beer.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really interesting creative solution in terms of trying to normalize that approach, because it's a country that doesn't have a lot of other options. They need to come up with some different ways of doing it. And if they can make this work, yeah, I think it was a very creative option here for them to go about doing. Again, looking into Singapore too, even though they have these issues, the country is really notorious for having very environmentally friendly, like clean water supplies. They had the Singapore River that was a huge scourge like in the 80s in terms of what they've done to clean that up, and marine life has come back. So this is a country that does have a good reputation for figuring out how to clean stuff up and make it palatable.
Yeah.
And if somebody can figure out, it's them. So to answer your initial question, I hope I could.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it will be a challenge, but I think this is a good way to get the wheels turning.
Well, and it makes sense, right? Because if you try selling people on water and you say, hey, it's an acquired taste, whew, that's a hard sell. But if you try selling people on beer and a little buzz, but it's an acquired taste, maybe that's a little bit easier.
yeah, it was a little weird to see the new water guy say that people say new water tastes funny.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
wish I hadn't have said that.
No, it's I pulled that out as well. I was just like, ooh, well, yeah, of course it tastes funny. Like in a good funny or like in a tingly everywhere funny.
Yeah, like we having a laugh or
Yeah.
yeah. I had a lot of feelings about this one. It took me a while to sort through that. I'm still not quite sure where I'm at with this. On the one hand, and I think Jeff spoke to this well, but like we do need to move past some preconceptions. As the climate is changing, as our need for resources is sort of ballooning with the population, lab-grown meat, insect-based proteins, stuff like that, even decreasing meat consumption, just like things that are maybe out of your comfort zone. And like for now, if you don't have to do it, if it's not required of you, it's very easy to talk yourself into like, well, I'm just one person. What's the difference?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think that would be a factor here because you're just one guy drinking beer.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it. No one's making you do it.
I could see buy-in that way. Just like, you put down the sixer and like, hey, we're doing our part for the environment.
Right. I know. I don't know. I mean, maybe if it's the only option, but I think that's at the root of this. Like you don't want to be behind that if this is ultimately the only option someday, which may be, 2065, you said, double the need for drinkable water. So certainly you can see the development need for something like this. As for whether or not it's the best way to reuse treated wastewater, I don't know. And, maybe they've like tried everything else. Maybe they're doing everything else. I guess I don't know that much about Singapore, but like, does it have to be in a food product? And I mean that completely sincerely. Like, there's tons of very water intensive processes that use a ton of water, like apparel manufacturing, for example. Like, I just, we just spent a ton of time talking about bacteria in toothpaste and how easy it is. We talk about this probably once a week on the podcast, how easy it is to make somebody sick. I'm not saying that this company isn't employing the most rigorous of practices, because it sounds like they are, but you really have to trust that. And you really have to trust that they're doing it the right way, and that, I don't know. It's just, there's that. And I just think, it seems to be that maybe there's other industries that have fewer hurdles when it comes to the ick factor. Like, I would rather have, if a little bit of fecal contamination is going to get in my blue jeans, okay. But like, if it's going to get in my beer, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like a totally different thing. So I don't know.
Well, I guess the impression I got is it wasn't going to be exclusively for food products. I think, they're looking at to cover everything as well. And I think from potentially an operational efficiency or a cost perspective too, whether it's desalination, that's still a refining process.
For sure.
Still something you have to do, whether you're taking water catchment or anything from the few lakes and streams that they do have, you're still treating that water pretty heavily.
Yeah.
Understanding it's not the same context as wastewater, but potentially when you look again from an operational perspective, it may not be as intensive as we think about it when you're a little bit more practical in terms of the cost and the process.
Well, and when you look at, the story we did a couple of weeks ago about real water. Yeah. they were just taking regular water that was fine for you.
And they still
processing it, and they messed it up.
Killed some people, yeah.
Yeah. So, agreed that anytime you process anything, you got to be extra careful. And I think, Anna, some of the questions you raise, I think, yes, we are at that point where we need something that works. They had a couple of other sort of high profile events where government officials were drinking just the water, and people were still just like, I don't know. And I think this goes a little further in terms of growing that goodwill. It's a simple fact that as water scarcity grows, we're going to need to learn how to love treated wastewater.
Yeah.
And many of these leaders were talking about how we can't call it wastewater anymore. We need to instead call it used water.
Used water.
And that was the most dystopian thing I've read in a long time. Just like, whoa. You're not flushing wastewater there. That's used water.
Upcycled.
It's going to be upcycled. Yeah. So I don't know. I think you need things like this to kind of start getting people on board for an imminent crisis.
Yeah, but do you think people are going to jump all in on this now, or you think this is just going to be waiting in the wings for when it is required?
No, I think you get as many people on board as you can now for when there's no choice. Maybe there's a little bit more buy-in.
Yeah.
Plus, it's only going to get better, right? The process.
Yeah.
Their ability to remove some of the ick.
Yeah. Did you guys notice when...
Wait, so they haven't removed all the ick yet?
I'm sure there's enough ick removed that it is safe to drink. But you can always be better.
When he was asked directly about the taste, and his answer was, well, beer is subjective.
It's true.
Just like, all right, that's not a yay or nay, but yeah, it is very true. And again, to me, it really made sense, because when you tell somebody to taste water and they say it tastes funny, non-starter. When you give somebody beer that kind of tastes funny, it's had worse,
Yeah.
We've all had, was it Mountain Creek? Was that the stuff where you could get like a 24-pack for $3? Anyway.
We have not all had that, no.
We've
don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. That's good. That is good. That was one that came all loose cans in the just cardboard slab.
It was water?
David.
No, it was beer.
Is this why you don't like beer? Is because you've been drinking Mountain Creek?
No, I don't like beer because I gave it 4 years. All beers I gave 4 years, and it was just like, everyone's like, it's an acquired taste. And I'm like, didn't acquire it. Nope. And I tried them all. Like, but this was, probably at the beginning of like the craft beer wave, but it was still just
Craft beer does not cost $3 for a case.
No. That's just one in
Mountain
particular
Creek
where
IPA.
the first time I saw
Hazy
it.
IPA.
Well, and the reason
It was just hazy. It wasn't even an IPA. It was just hazy.
it's not great, but I do know specifically we had one neighbor that lived upstairs from us in an apartment, and anytime he took out his recycling, you would just see bags full of this, and it's
Mountain Creek. Wow.
man, do you need a hug? No, it's
Never
not
heard
good.
of that.
Producer Eric can back me up here on the badness.
It's not okay.
It is not okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when you get
Oh, really?
24, yeah, it's made in Monroe, Wisconsin. I
Wow.
can't imagine the reviews are good.
Anna didn't even taste it. She's just looking at it.
Anna just audibly gasped.
$7 for a 30-pack, Eric?
What was the audible gasp over, Anna?
Just even seeing the can, I can tell how bad it is.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you
got
can't sink resources into it. You got to can it and get it on the shelf.
It's got a bunch of maple leaves on it.
Yeah, sure.
Is it Canadian?
What, you said Molson? Yeah. Well,
All right. Well,
let's move on to
Taste test.
the prospects. I mean, that would be a wild taste test to try and get 3 of these 15,000 cans of beer.
I think I'd drink wastewater beer before I drink Mountain Creek.
Ooh, an interesting little side bet. All right. Our next most popular story. Big Potato accused of price fixing. 4 companies produce the overwhelming majority of frozen potato products in the United States. According to 5 new antitrust lawsuits, those companies conspired to fix prices. The lawsuit attacked Lamb Weston, J.R. Simplot, McCain Foods, and Cavendish Farms, which control more than 95% of the French fry and frozen potato product markets. Circana, a market research firm, and the National Potato Promotion Board were also named in 2 of these lawsuits. The lawsuits say potato products are generally interchangeable, so competition between producers should drive prices down. Instead, prices rose by 47% the last 2 years. The lawsuits suggest the companies improperly shared trade information and coordinated a series of price increases starting in 2021. The filing cites statements from company executives, including one who said that its rivals were, quote, behaving themselves. McCain strongly disputes the allegations and plans to vigorously defend itself. The others have remained more or less hush-hush. Jeff, have we stumbled on a stealthy plot to starch consumers? Or is this just inflation?
Wow. Did Carrie help you with that? Be honest.
No, but I know somewhere she's smiling.
Very well done. There's actually a lot to this story. I was not aware of some of these things that are going on just with the potato shortage. Going back to 2022, there was famine. There was definitely some issues with the potato harvest that led to a lower supply. Prices went up. Farmers were getting paid 75% more for a lot of the potatoes they were harvesting just because there was not enough to meet demand. So that also fed into some stockpiling of potatoes. And so there's a lot of justifiable elements here that would support an increase in prices. Just market dynamics, things that necessarily couldn't be controlled when you look at famine and other factors like that. So to hear about then this lawsuit was kind of confusing. But you also have to separate the 2 factions. I don't think this is about the price increase. It's more about the collusion that was happening between these entities.
The seemingly blatant, in-your-face collusion.
Yeah, and that's where I struggle because there's always this weird line for me in terms of if you have a product, you should be able to sell it for whatever you want to. But again, you can't collude.
In a fair market.
You can't fix prices. That's something you can't do. So that's what's kind of interesting here. And it's interesting that it's coming back on the processors too. I just hope there's no blowback on the farmers and the producers because there's a lot of additional costs that are being absorbed all along the way as well. Fuel prices have gone up. So if you're a potato farmer, obviously your costs have increased there just in harvesting, irrigating, taking care of those products that have become more and more important. So then you're able to charge a premium price for them. Same thing for the processors. We hear a lot about labor rates increasing. They've got fuel and transportation costs that have gone up. And this all bleeds into the fact that, again, there was a justifiable reason to increase prices. This collusion, if it did indeed take place, just seems so unnecessary. Like they had all of the things in their favor to do what they wanted to, but they had to make sure they were talking to each other to do the same thing, is what the lawsuit alleges. Okay, we don't
allegedly,
know this,
right? Yeah,
this for sure.
Every 3 minutes we'll put in an allegedly.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting dynamic. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. The one thing I also found in sort of digging around a little bit the story, do you know who the biggest buyer of potatoes in the U.S. is?
It's McDonald's, right?
Yeah. I was kind of surprised to see that.
Oh,
Than all these like frozen food companies.
Yeah, no, it's been that way for a long time.
Yeah.
But Jeff, what is like? I mean, okay, I'm generally pretty non-criminal, but what's like crime rule number 1? You don't write any of this down. You don't say things, Anna. You don't say things like our competitors are behaving themselves. You just don't do that.
True, but like, what does that? I mean, what does that statement mean in a court of law? Like that's just like a very I don't know, nuanced. Like, who knows what that's referring to? You can't.
Okay, who knows what that's referring to? But so far, some of the things that have come out of these lawsuits, there's a lot more there.
Potentially. I don't know. So, first I want to go back to a few things that Jeff talked about. I know that you're right. There have been some pressures within the market, supply chain stuff, ag stuff that would tend to suggest that it makes sense that these prices are going up. But the allegations say that these frozen potato product prices increased 47% between July of 22 and July of 24, even though input costs declined by 33% during that same time period. That's what the suit says.
Yep.
If that's true, huge.
If that's true.
Huge if true.
Yeah.
If that's true, then it's quite telling evidence of what's already been widely reported, and we've seen in many other areas, that some of these price increases that took place post-pandemic were really outpacing the increases caused by inflationary cost pressures on those companies. I'm not going to use the word gouging. Some people have, but it seems like in definitely in some products you were seeing that. According to the consumer plaintiff, a former vice president of Lamb Weston in 2023 said his old employers, R.J. Simplot and McCain, have never seen margins this high in the history of the potato industry. And that's margins. So we know what that means, right? If, again, like, these are allegations, I don't know, but the plaintiff said that Lamb Weston did what it could to avoid a paper trail and told its managers to communicate about competitor pricing and business intelligence via text instead of emails, since it would be more difficult to trace in the event of an antitrust investigation. Whoa. Now, all of that said, I will go back to something that you said that I completely agree with, Jeff, which is, if you can't prove collusion and you cannot prove that this was done in a coordinated way, it is not illegal for a company to look at a competitor's pricing and then say, see, that's working, and match the increase, because that becomes a market price for that product. So it will be interesting to see if these arguments fly absent of a lot of email evidence, which it sounds like they don't really have. And so I don't know. I don't know if they can prove that happened or not. I mean, it would also be very easy for these potato companies to say, like, look, our competitors are charging this, so we tried it and it worked. People are paying it,
Yeah. Well, it's good to see that, consumers everywhere are looking for a little bit more context around inflation and around current pricing. And we're starting to see in various markets some things come out that might be interesting to people as to why their potatoes cost 47% more.
Well, and that's why, blockchain has become sort of a weird thing. It hit so hard. Everybody's talking about blockchain, and then it sort of died out because it got a little more complicated. But if we could ever figure that out, where you can really see all this traceability in terms of not only where it came from, but how much it was paid, what was paid for it, all that kind of, for things down to the ingredient level or the component level of a product, that could also offer additional visibility that would make these types of situations extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Because if you can see those huge fluctuations as a consumer and where the money was coming from, that can make you more educated too, and who you feel comfortable buying from.
Well, I thought a lot of the allegations were really stark, and I pulled a lot of the same ones out that you did, Anna. One, I wanted to say the frozen potato market was worth, or the frozen potato product market was worth $68 billion last year. So we're eating a lot of spuds. And I thought it was pretty stark. In February 2021, McCain announced a price increase that was followed suit after by the three other companies the plaintiffs said that began this tit for tat price increases. And I just wanted to reiterate the point that you raised. Frozen potato product prices increased 47% from July 2022 to July 2024, even though input costs were down by 33% at the same time.
Okay, I want to tackle that. And I'm just playing devil's advocate here as much as anything, but when you say input costs, those can also be subjective. Okay, haulers can charge different amounts, different facilities can have different labor rates. There's a lot of things that you could do to manipulate that input cost or overhead cost that be associated with that. I think that would be a tough one to prove.
Yeah. Okay. There's some things that can be manipulated, but a third?
I mean, 30 cents on the dollar. I mean, that is a lot. but again, if you're looking at potentially, so let's just say factory work in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin versus factory work in someplace in the places that we've covered down south, it is going to be a significant difference. You could see a difference in labor rates between $25 and $15 an hour. Okay. That's a significant change. Now, I'm not sure that applies here because, with potatoes, it's a very regional in terms of how all that comes together, but there is a way to manipulate that to make it look more or less.
Yeah.
I understand we're looking at a big dollar amount here. And after reading the article and doing some research, I personally believe there was some funky stuff going on here.
Yeah.
Just playing devil's advocate,
I
you
understand.
could see how some of this can be kind of fought out in court.
Yeah. And I mean, as a consumer, I certainly made changes in terms of we bought less tater tots, we bought less hash browns, we bought less fries, and just bought whole potatoes because those were the ones that the cost seemed to be under a little bit more control, a little bit more manageable. The only one I couldn't get around was those potato smiles. I had to buy them. It's like, if my kid's food isn't smiling at them or otherwise emoting something, they apparently can't shove it in their face. But no, so I mean, I know as a consumer, I made changes because I saw some of these increases and I'm just like, what do they want for hash browns? I can shred my own. According to the Financial Post, the retail lawsuit suggests McCain was one of the ringleaders, claiming the company, quote, tore up its contracts in 2022 and increased all prices to guarantee a 30% margin. The others followed suit. I'm intrigued to follow this one. And I have to say that, when we're pitching stories around the newsroom in the morning as to what we're going to cover, and Andy Zoll, who's on the panel sometimes, jumped up. He's like, I got it. Potato cartel. And I'm like, I don't know. Potato cartel? And then he started talking about it. I'm like, really? Just did not see that coming.
There you go.
But I guess that's what happens when you have 4 companies or 5 companies that own 98% of the market. Yeah. That can't be good. All right. Our most popular story this week, Ford to cut Bronco production. In January, Ford said it was scaling back F-150 Lightning production. The company said workers making the Lightning would move to plants producing the Ranger and Bronco. But now, according to Crane's Detroit Business, Ford is even scaling back Bronco production. Inventories are rising, sales are low, and now the company needs to relocate some 400 production workers from the Michigan assembly plant in Wayne to other facilities. At least none of the workers are being laid off. At least not now, anyways. The production change is set to take place early next year. Cox Automotive recently said Ford's inventory of new vehicles hit a day supply of 115 in October compared to 85 industry-wide. Now, the collateral damage might already be underway. Layoffs announced by Michigan auto supplier Webasto Roof Systems are potentially related to Ford's pullback on the Bronco. Webasto plans to lay off 218 employees as a result of, quote, reduced production by a customer, though that customer was not named. Ford also announced 4,000 job cuts in Europe and the UK by the end of 2027. Jeff, should we expect more right-sizing from Ford and, for that matter, other automakers through the end of the year, maybe early next year?
We're just on this weird roller coaster right now because historically the automotive industry has always struggled with forecasting. I know I've used this analogy before, but you go back to 2008 when all of those folks were appearing in front of Congress. It wasn't because they were having trouble selling cars. It was because they were making way too many and they couldn't sell them profitably. And I think what we're seeing now is this dynamic coming still. I mean, forecasting for automotive production doesn't begin in January. It starts 18 months or 24 months prior to that. And we're coming straight off of everything that was weird with the pandemic. We're still trying to figure this out. Auto sales are kind of flat this year. They're not down.
Yeah.
The automotive industry isn't really doing poorly. It just didn't increase at the level that everybody hoped and thought it would. So I think what we're seeing with this situation, as well as a number of others that we've talked about, they just missed the mark on this model. And all of these facilities are so specialized right now in terms of what they're doing and what they're producing that when there is a shortcoming, this is the ramification of it. And right now we're hitting crazy inventory levels. They're talking about 3 million vehicles basically sitting in storage for the U.S. automotive industry.
Yeah.
That's like 2020 levels when people just weren't buying stuff. So automotive is still figuring out how to forecast, especially when you look at a vehicle like the Bronco that was so highly touted and had so much enthusiasm behind it when it came out. Then it hit the streets and people were like, it's okay.
Yeah.
There's some issues here. I mean, it's had some recalls. It's had some safety concerns. And once people got it, it just didn't blow them away enough to justify the levels of production that Ford was putting out. So I think we are going to see more of this. To answer your initial question, yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more of this because it's hard to forecast right now.
Yeah.
At some point, the EV sales are going to bounce back. And then we're going to see this potentially this reshifting of workforce too from, man, we were making all these F-150s. Now we got to switch over and make the Lightnings or something similar to that. So it's going to be interesting to watch. And the automotive worker is in a real roller coaster ride right now, I think.
Well, and you raise a really good point about performance, right? Because the new Bronco looks cool, but that's only going to get you so far. A couple of comments that were pulled off of this video post actually did very well on YouTube. One person said, people are not buying garbage. Another said they need a V8. They need a V8. The base models are gutless. I mean, and so I think you're seeing people that, a lot of people rushed out, bought it because it's cool. Then a lot of them were out there and people kind of drove them, sort of thought to themselves like,
it did not get that word of mouth momentum I think that Ford was counting on to really have this surge of interest.
Yeah, they need that. What was the Baja Sport? That thing just looks cool. Hopefully it's got better performance. And a couple of facts from this. Bronco SUV sales were actually up 105% year over year in October, but still deliveries were down 10% in 2024. Now Ford is undergoing this aggressive restructuring that trying to save $2 billion annually in costs. I mean, is this just an issue of the nature of the sales cycle and the development cycle for Ford and them kind of just getting stuck behind the eight ball? I mean, I guess it's hard to nail it down to just one or two things.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a mix between that and what Jeff said. Like, they just missed on this one a little bit. Obviously, they increased production on this model in January. And then, that sales increase that you referred to, that's year over year month of October. Like for the year is down double digits. That's not great. I think we saw a ton of comments on this piece, as you mentioned, both on YouTube and on our site, on the third-party sites that picked this up as well. Almost every single one of them, I noticed, focused on two things, poor quality and high price.
Yeah.
Those two things. Yeah. And while Ford, I think, needs to go it alone on quality, I don't have any help for them there. The pricing issue is most certainly one that's impacted heavily by market dynamics. And we've seen a lot of things to do with consumer buying patterns, specifically this year, that I think are interesting. Cox Automotive said in September that 73% of consumers report that they've held off on purchasing a new vehicle because of elevated prices. 3 of 4 also said that they wouldn't want to pay an interest rate above 6%. Well, guess what? Unless your credit score is like 800 or above, you're going to,
Even if it is, you're paying that.
I know, like subprime credit ratings put you in an interest rate in like in the teens right now. I mean, it's terrible. So, Cox says that even as the new and used vehicle markets continue to normalize, car shoppers are still facing what they call historically harsh purchasing conditions. And those returning to showrooms for the first time in years, because the average person is holding on to a vehicle for 6 years and hasn't bought one since 2018. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember 2018? Completely different ballgame. So Cox says they're going to experience some major sticker shock, which we know. And in response, they say consumers are likely being forced into making trade-offs, such as selecting a different brand of vehicle, an older vehicle, or a different size vehicle, unless they allocate more of their vehicle budget, which isn't always feasible. I think that's like just the reality. And you talked about this comment about like the base model is gutless. Well, that's, even the base trim on this is like 40 grand. Some of these are like 70, 80, 90 grand. You can't even put a suitcase in the back. Yeah. Like they're very cool for off-roading, but they're very loud for driving around the city. And like, so
it's impractical.
They may be impractical for a lot of people, and they're also kind of expensive. And so, I mean, ultimately, I think that isn't good context for a vehicle that's already got a reputation for being overpriced to be like now trying to exist in this market where people are like kind of inching back a little bit and saying like, I'm not going to buy at 12% right now. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to spend $70,000. I'm going to wait or I'm going to buy used. I mean, we're just seeing a lot more of that, I think, this year specifically. And to your point, the auto market has been flat as a result. And if Bronco is below that, then they got to make some changes.
So with all the market realities, this time next year, are we looking at the resurgence or rebirth of the sedan?
Cox had some very interesting data about what people wanted to spend on a vehicle. Mm-hmm. And there was a huge swath of people, I want to say like 40% or 30%, who said they wanted to spend under $25,000.
Cool. And that is not the number I thought it was going to be.
And there's not vehicles in that price bracket.
So you're saying yes.
I have some concerns about tariffs and what that's going to do to automotive. I don't know that that's going to be helpful if we are slapping a bunch of extra cost on vehicles that are not being produced here. Yeah. That's going to impact automakers a lot. It's going to impact consumers a lot. So we'll see what happens there. But I don't know. Jeff. I feel like again, you can't prove collusion, but we've seen a lot of automakers move away from that lower price, lower margin option, even though consumers very clearly want it.
Yeah. What do you think, Jeff?
I don't think we're going to see sort of the rebirth of the sedan yet. Yeah. But I do think we're going to see, used cars have come down a little bit. They're starting to be reasonable. Yeah. Okay, not where we would like them to be, but I think you're going to see just more and more pressure being applied to that marketplace, where some of those vehicles before that, maybe right now, are selling for, just to throw out a round number, $17,000. Maybe next year they're creeping up again towards that $19,000, $20,000, $21,000, just because, to Anna's point, people don't want to pay those higher interest rates, so they're going to buy an older vehicle that they're going to hope is going to last longer.
Just throw a second battery in it, call it a hybrid, get it some rebates. Right? I'm pretty sure that's all I got to do.
That's all you got to do?
That's all I got to do. We can't downplay how many people were fired up over this. Producer Eric just sent me a couple more, so I'll just read a handful of these examples. No way they will cut prices. God forbid they'd rather cut jobs and continue sticking it to the consumer. Those job cuts are coming. Bank on it. Yeah. Stellantis already did it. Kyle says, reduce the price. People are broke. Are you execs that stupid? And then there's just a lot of question marks. A Mr. Ferguson, I'm not going to repeat his first name.
T. Ferguson.
Mr. T. Ferguson says, the Bronco is great for $50K for a mid-level, is great, but $50K for a mid-level two-door Bronco with a four-cylinder engine is just crazy. Imploding Goat says the Bronco looks great, but it's unreliable, too expensive, and filled with stuff I don't need. Keep the styling and make it simpler and more reliable, and it would sell. Net Worth simply says the Bronco is a piece of car. I'm going to say that's what he said. Is a piece of car. Anyway, so a lot of people not happy out there. So maybe they just slash the price in half, make everyone happy, right? Sell some cars, get them out there.
I think what they'll probably do is put a better engine in it.
Yeah.
Right now it's at 2.7 liter, so don't be surprised if they upgrade the engine to try to justify the price that it's at.
Okay. Well, before we jump into, in case you missed it, the stories that maybe weren't as popular on our websites like Industrial Equipment News and Manufacturing.net, we have another word from our sponsor, Orkin. This week's episode brought to you by Orkin. Do you feel like pests keep finding creative new ways into your facility? You're not imagining it. Even if you are careful about managing pests, these crafty creatures are always looking for holes in your defenses. So, download Exclusion Basics, your first line of defense against pests. A new guide that gives you the best exclusion practices to keep pests outside your facility. Now, if you don't know what exclusion is, it is the repairing, sealing off, and shutting down common pest entry points. Download this new guide right now, link in the body copy and link in the live chat, so you can check out the 6 signs you might need exclusion services. All right, in case you missed it, stories not as popular despite your time and effort putting them together for long periods of time. I'll go first this week. For my in case you missed it, I chose a story that I put together after an interview at IMTS this year. This story had the headline, Industrial AI is Transforming Manufacturing. Nearly every aspect of the manufacturing industry has become connected. Until recently, the flood of information from disparate data points was untenable. Enter AI and the power to ingest all these disparate bits and pieces of information, pull them together, and use AI's processing prowess to make actionable insights. As IoT, the industrial or the Internet of Things and the industrial Internet of Things has matured, Kathleen Mitford, the corporate VP of Global Industry Marketing at Microsoft, who I interviewed at IMTS 2024, Kathleen says it has become the foundation for AI in manufacturing. This is the Internet of Things. She says the adoption of AI is faster than anything Microsoft has ever seen, and many manufacturers are already using it. Now, I chose this article because it has a couple of high points in terms of how AI is being used right now on shop floors and in engineering rooms all across the industry. So how's AI being used in product development? Harding is using AI to make custom designed products significantly faster. The company does industrial connectors. The company recently partnered with Siemens and Microsoft's Azure AI platform to use AI to create custom designs. A CAD engineer loads the project requirements, and then the AI scours Harding's entire library to create a precise CAD design. The tool has not only freed up engineering department resources, but it does a better job of using its existing inventory. So, how is AI running factories? Bridgestone partnered with Microsoft to build a custom AI tool that uses Microsoft Copilot. When bottlenecks happen at a Bridgestone facility, Copilot not only flags the inefficiency, but can come up with a solution. For example, frontline workers can ask Copilot a question. They can say, where is the production slowdown coming from? And then Copilot searches all production and asset monitoring data and identifies the problem. Finally, there's a look at AI in maintenance, and this is the abridged version. You can check out this article online and in the last print issue of Industrial Equipment News magazine. AI in maintenance, in particular Textron, which has struggled with downtime because when airplanes are grounded, they're not making money. The company deployed Microsoft Copilot to not only identify maintenance problems, but provide step-by-step solutions as to how to fix them. It also pinpointed the talent most qualified for the job. Textron built this custom Copilot and fed it 60,000 pages of maintenance documentation and manuals, and now the smart assistant is rolled out to 1,600 technicians across 20 global facilities, serving more than 250,000 aircraft. So, it's working. Now, I chose this story just because up until this point, AI has been this nebulous buzzword. Not exactly, but everyone's wanted a piece of AI. Everyone's wanted to get into the artificial intelligence game. They haven't necessarily known how. Some people are a little gun shy because things that were already solutions in the market have been rebranded artificial intelligence, and people are like, well, I'm already doing that. And I just wanted to call out how these very large manufacturers are using it right now and how it's making a tremendous impact on their business. Jeff, I don't know if you had a chance to check out this article, but what were some of your takeaways when it comes to AI, specifically Microsoft's Copilot, being used across the industry?
Well, it's interesting, your contact from Microsoft talks about how quickly it's been adapted. Well, we've been dealing with AI for a long time.
Yeah.
We called it machine learning. So to talk about that escalation or adoption level being so high or so fast, I think that's because we already had a lot of this in place. I think what's really interesting or almost reassuring, I guess you could say, from the examples you provided here is this is not crazy sci-fi, outlandish types of schemes. This is everyday regular stuff where we're using an advanced technology to just make things better and smoother and quicker.
Yeah.
And when you say everybody wanted to get involved with AI, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of manufacturers who did not want to touch this because it was made to be such a it'll revolutionize everything, as opposed to taking the approach of, you know what, it's going to take what you're doing now and make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And make it a little bit easier. And doing that with all of your systems is what's going to sell these platforms. And I think that's one area where some of these big tech firms have missed, because they want to tout their accomplishments and tout this technology at such a level that it justifies a lot of the expenses and time that they put into it, as opposed to just telling manufacturers, hey, it's just going to make it easier and quicker for you. It's not going to revolutionize. It's not going to dramatically change the face of your company. It's just going to help you operate better.
Yeah.
I think that's going to improve the receptance of this type of technology and these platforms like Copilot, as opposed to some of that stuff we're coming up before where it was less tangible.
Yeah. Well, and I guess not everybody wants to use it. I guess I misspoke. I meant more people, everyone's curious about what it is, how it could be used, and should we be using it?
Sure.
And I think one of the points in this article, Anna, is that a lot of this is already out there. It was the creation of this big data problem where we had all these different data points out there feeding us information. It was like, all right, now what?
Right. Yeah.
And basically, AI is the now what. Making a little bit of sense as to what you're looking at. And I don't know if you had a chance to check this out, but these are some very low hanging fruit, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think that's what's helpful about a story like this is, the words that are being used here are downtime. The maintenance segment was really impactful, I thought, because it talks about, feeding the documentation into this system. And now suddenly you have a solution to that problem that exists in every plant, which is like, how do you maintain like an archive of the tribal knowledge and make sure that everyone knows how to deal with the same problem in the same way every time?
Yeah.
So it definitely lends some consistency to some of those processes. And I think showing the way these companies are using it is really helpful because, again, I think there's a lot of fear for sure. I think there's a lot of preconceptions around like, what does this mean in terms of, because I feel like, companies look at tech solutions and they think, all right, more data. Yeah. Like more data avalanche for me to deal with.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. But this is more than that. And so I thought it was a good article.
Well, and that was a point that you raised that really stuck out to me during the interview was that we don't know how to capture this tribal knowledge. I mean, we have companies out there that are essentially interviewing every employee to try and download everything they know. And she says everything that, their expertise is out there in this documentation, and we need to feed it into the engine so we can make some sense of it. Your tribal knowledge is in there. We just need to get it into a reliable warehouse. Microsoft also just had their Ignite event. It was the company's annual event. We just posted a story today that had applications from ABB, Campari, Eaton, Lenovo, and Toyota. So the case studies are spreading, and I highly recommend people check out some of those developments as well, because as Mitford said, quote, AI is real and happening now. If you haven't already started on the AI journey, you're behind. But I think, Jeff, to your point too, a lot of people are already on it. They just don't know it sometimes.
Yeah, true.
Anna, what is your, in case you missed it this week?
I selected a story titled Solar Foods Launches Solein Protein Made from Thin Air. And the reason I selected it is because what does that mean, right? I'm surprised that more people didn't click on this because when I saw it, I was like, oh, what? Like I had to like find out what this, anyway.
No, it was definitely a double take when you read it. You're like, I mean, that doesn't make sense.
No, it
Who
doesn't.
I got to talk to about the typo?
Yeah. So I will explain. So the story is about a company called Solar Foods, which is a Finnish food company, and they are working with a chef, Greg Backstrom, from a very famous, apparently, restaurant in New York. And they've unveiled a groundbreaking Solein protein, which was discovered in nature and is produced with air and electricity, resulting in one of the most sustainable, nutritious, and adaptable food ingredients ever discovered. And why is this not like front page news everywhere?
Yeah.
Right?
Are they electrocuting the air to make food?
Kind of, yeah.
Oh,
So,
okay.
So here's how it works. And I'm gonna try. I'm just reading verbatim because So it said that it was discovered in Nordic nature. It's a nutritious protein-rich powder made up of a single-cell organism that is grown with carbon dioxide and hydrogen, completely independent of land use and agriculture. It takes the form of a flour-like powder, and the protein can be used as a nutritional ingredient in everything from pasta to beverages to ice cream. It blends into both savory and sweet foods, and they say it can be used to replace existing proteins, like alternative dairy and meat. It can be used in snacks, noodles, pasta, bread, spreads. It's got a very mild flavor, but they say it also has an unmatched nutritional profile. It's composed of 75% protein along with fiber, unsaturated fats, minerals, vitamins, including iron and B12. So unlike comparable proteins, this is according to the article, Solein does not rely, again, on agriculture at all. Instead, it requires only renewable energy, airborne materials, and a small amount of minerals, the same ones a plant would take with its roots from the soil for its production. So they say this offers an exciting answer to many of the food production problems humanity faces. Yeah. So anyway, I grabbed this one because not only is it like, it just seems like kind of mind blowing to me. And again, I was surprised that more people didn't see this, but also as we sit down to a big meal this week, and a lot of us are spending our time off doing that. Just a reminder that there's so much food insecurity in the world, and to think like something like this exists and is discoverable, and we live in this age of science that we can discover it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just kind of blew me away. So
I don't know what I'm more in favor of. Protein from bugs, insects, or protein made from single-celled, what was it?
Air protein.
Organisms,
I don't know.
Air protein. I mean, at first when you said air protein, I'm like, so are they just like zapping the dust in the, just air and human skin cells from the air and then making a protein powder out of that? But at least it's a single cell organism and not our skin.
What? But no one said our skin.
No, but that was my first. I was like, well, what are they zapping out of the air that's protein? I guess I'm like, well, if it's dusty,
David.
it's getting to be the ashy season.
God.
So, Jeff.
Way to take a nice story and make it dark, David.
No kidding.
Is it making it dark? I was just saying it's not that.
Okay.
No, it's great that it's not that. But okay, but I mean, this is pretty wild. We're talking about.
It is.
I mean,
I agree.
It's not even like I don't even want to call it futuristic because I've never even seen an idea like this as a concept proposed. So it's just wild.
It is. It's kind of hard to wrap your brain around, to be honest. I totally missed this one. This is incredible, especially when you see the different ways it can be used, the different food categories. It's like, what can it do? I mean, this is amazing. So when Anna brought it up, when you think about as crazy as wasteful potentially as we can be here in the U.S. and places in the world where that couldn't even be fathomed, to have a solution like this in place is pretty amazing.
So is the idea that you would be able to harvest this yourself?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, the article itself was very short, and I didn't supplement it with any other research before the podcast. So I will look into that to find out more about this Solein.
Well, because anecdotally, you think of how many times you just use like flour or something while you're cooking, and in a futuristic landscape where you had some sort of machine that could potentially harvest and process this from thin air, That is wild.
I know. Like, could you make it in your home? You don't need agricultural land, like any of that.
I mean, that's what it sounds like. I mean, depending on what the process is, just like, hey, I need 3 cups of air protein so I can make my Christmas cookies this year.
Yeah.
Beats, the high nut powder prices out there. Man, that is cool. And I'm just, like you said, Jeff, just trying to wrap my mind around it.
It's crazy.
Jeff, what's your In Case You Missed It this week?
So I picked an article. It was submitted by Andrea Carcano. She is the co-founder of Nizumi Networks. They're an industrial cybersecurity company. And it's entitled, Why the Holiday Shopping Season May Rely on Securing the Manufacturing Industry. Article reads, this time of year, retailers and manufacturers are busy preparing for the chaotic but all-important holiday shopping season. Inventory and shipping confidence is often top of mind, especially with the continuous supply chain challenges we've experienced over the past few years. This year, the U.S. holiday shopping spend is expected to increase by 7% compared to last year as consumers embrace digital and traditional in-store experiences. To meet consumer demand, organizations are steadily increasing their investment technology to manage inventory, logistics, and production. Unfortunately, more investment in IT doesn't always mean a proportional investment in cybersecurity. And I brought this up because, we do that security breach podcast, and it's always talking about it's not a matter of if, but when a company gets hit by a cyber attack. It's especially true when we look at things in the supply chain. There's a lot of smaller players there, whether you're a small manufacturer, a logistics provider, a distributor, whatever the case may be, and hackers are getting very attuned to this dynamic. And they're picking out that weakest link and they're hitting it because they know that those organizations are going to be more prone to pay the ransom or meet whatever demands are being expected of them because of all the pressure that's going to be put on them up and down the supply chain.
Yeah.
And this article goes into more detail about the types of attacks that are taking place, the things we can expect, as well as potential solutions. And a lot of the solutions, and we've talked about this a lot, they're not rocket science. They're real basic stuff that we can do in securing our networks, using better passwords, not clicking on those phishing emails, all of those types of things. And I brought this up because, again, we're getting into that time of year where if a hacker really does want to put pressure on an organization, what better time to hit it? Because right now there is so much commerce going on, nobody wants to miss out on it. So just a reminder to check those boxes and make sure you're being smart with all of those different all the different shipping, all the different production data that's available or potentially exposed and what you're doing out there because somebody's waiting.
This really reminded me of the Santo Spirits heist because there are millions of dollars in production, multiple years in production of some of those products, and then weak link in the supply chain is gone.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, if anything, you raise a point that they were a little bit more sophisticated, perhaps that might have been a shipment that might have been ransomed instead of just stolen and thrown on the black market. No, and I think that this article, if not for any other reason, people need to check out the nefarious Santa Ninja hacker photo at the top.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
That was my question. That was your selection?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very creepy.
Yeah. When I think holiday shopping season, cybersecurity, this is it.
Yeah.
This picture is saying all the words.
The only thing that would have pushed this further is if that person were wearing a Grinch costume.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah. Missed
AI.
opportunity,
Yeah,
Jeff,
my
but
bad.
maybe next time.
Get it in the AI image generator, producer Eric. No, but I mean, once again, I think that stories like this do a really good job of reinforcing best practices that are otherwise maybe being pushed back when they should be put into place as soon as possible.
Yeah, for sure. And, everyone's in a rush. Everyone's trying to do a lot of stuff this time of year. I think at its most basic level, just try to listen to your gut if something seems off. I mean, I've seen like a higher frequency of weird emails coming through my own inbox, coming to my phone, like pretending to be people I know or people who work. I got an email recently that was someone claiming to be from our own sales department asking me for information on like a bank account, like stuff, where just you got to slow down, click on the message, make sure it's somebody that you actually know, maybe call them first. Like just
if it looks wrong, it's wrong.
It's wrong. Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
And if it looks right and it sounds wrong, just no matter what, be skeptical.
Yeah,
Like,
I
so
agree.
we're getting hit right now because this company is spoofing a medical device company and telling us we haven't paid.
Oh.
And the only reason that something didn't happen was because there were some accusations thrown around as to who may or may not have been responsible for that late payment.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this person knew that the payment was there on time with plenty of time to spare. And then it started to unravel as this, potential phishing scheme. It's wild. It's wild how sophisticated it is.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the bright spot of this is a lot of these things have very straightforward and simple fixes. Just don't put your head in the sand about it.
Yeah. To put your head in the sand. No one needs your social security number.
Oh my God.
All right. Before we get out of here this week, let's get into our final thoughts. Anna, do you have a final thought this week?
Nothing super exciting. I just Thanksgiving is here. It's my favorite holiday because I love just like sitting around doing.
It's sitting and eating.
Yeah,
in
it's
a cozy environment.
I know. I don't have to like wrap a bunch of stuff or. It's a nice day and I'm really looking forward to it. And so I would encourage everyone, if they can, to just take some time and quiet and try not to overdo it. You don't need to. Take the day off. Just chill.
Just everyone calm down.
Everyone calm down and chill.
Yeah.
And also, if you need to put off the dishes for a while, do that also. Like,
Or have kids.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah. They can peel potatoes. They can wash dishes. They are capable.
I know they are.
Not yours.
Well, kind of. I mean, like we're getting to the point where I'm like, you guys need to clean up after yourselves if you like after you made smoothies with 20 different fruits, and then and they do like a medium job, and I only have to go through afterwards and like rewash 50% of them. So we're getting there.
That's improvement. Mm-hmm. That's definitely improvement. My final thought this week was that, so I was just doing some cleaning around the house, and I like to vacuum. As I was... I
like to vacuum.
Yeah.
Nerd alert.
That's right.
You
That's
like
right.
to vacuum? I don't believe this.
When you have a house with two young boys, and you are able to create white noise to drown that out for about an hour...
Okay.
It's soothing.
Hour?
All right.
Hey, you got to get in there. You got to get in there. But anyway, so I was cleaning out the vacuum because after you're done vacuuming, you got to clean the vacuum. And it turns out that my vacuum has not only one, but two filters. A second filter that I never noticed, even though it's very clearly labeled, check your filter every 6 months. And I read that and I just thought to myself, when did we get this vacuum? And I couldn't even remember when we brought it into the house. And so I just carefully opened it and it was in this little plastic container. So I turned it over because you're supposed to pull it out, wash it out, just give it a rinse or whatever. Dust. Absolute dust. And it was great because it still had the print on it. And it was like, you could tell it was a filter, but it was one of those where it was just like, like you touched it and just like sands through the hourglass. And it was like so disintegrated that it had like kind of caked into the like triple filter contraption that holds it. And it took some time to clean that out.
Took some doing.
But you got to get the vacuum some more.
Well, not yet. I'm prevented from vacuuming.
He's saving it for the weekend so he can really enjoy it.
I've ordered this like special filter, and it's not like a Prime thing that comes next day. So I've had to patiently wait for it, and it should be here tomorrow. God
You're
bless.
like, I'm gonna wait till Friday night.
Yeah, it's gonna be my Black Friday. Is gonna be vacuuming. Just
for myself some. What is it? Mountain Creek.
Yeah, crack a Mountain Creek.
A Mountain Creek.
Dump it in the garbage. Use it to feed some plants. Just as my final thought is a reminder that sometimes read the fine print on your devices at home might be valuable. And like the vacuum has worked great, so I'm looking forward to how it works when it has functioning filters.
Oh man, your vacuuming already great is going to get so much better.
I only worry that hour I spend vacuuming or more, let's be real, is shortened because it's so much more efficient. And so I'm just going to have to go slower because obviously the family already knows don't bother daddy for an hour.
You don't want to shorten the vacuuming time.
Hasn't that ever happened to you guys where you go to like check a filter or you find out a filter exists and you're just like, whatever is behind this is not going to be good?
No.
Come on. In like the many years you've been using any device, you've never just been like,
I've either just not changed a filter. That's certainly possible, but I've never been like, oh, what is this? I don't know what to do here.
Look at this. There's another filter down here.
That's crazy.
Huh.
No, I can't remember coming across that,
Lies.
David.
I feel confident saying lies where you didn't just have like an O-ring or something disintegrate and you're just like, well, look at that. I was supposed to replace that.
Usually things would stop working by that point.
That's to the quality of this product, Dyson vacuums. They're built to just last. They're meat proof.
Especially for enthusiasts like yourself.
Yeah.
You guys don't like a
Daily
vacuum?
users.
It's a
I'm
chore,
not
man. It's not like I hate it, but it's not something I look
It's not
forward
like
to.
It's not like a daily. I get home from work and I'm just like,
Fire it up.
No one mess with daddy. I'm taking the flannel off and I'm vacuuming for 3 hours.
Sorry, guys. I got some work to do.
Mm-hmm. Leave me alone. I got an attachment in every pocket. All right. So our cleaning regimen is different. Everybody's different.
It's not the regimen. It's the level of enjoyment and enthusiasm that you tackle that with.
It really is. Once you guys,
It's applaudable, dude. Good work.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Your final thought?
So my final thought is just coming up here on Thanksgiving. We've had some stuff going on at home. It's been kind of crazy, so I'm definitely looking forward to the downtime. But it also got me thinking that maybe it'd be a good time to get back to some Wagner Products trivia.
Yes.
Close things
all
out.
right.
Oh, it's been like a year.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how about we do this Hollywood Square style? So I'm going to ask you two the question. You can give your answer.
Okay.
And then the audience can say if they agree with you for these questions, or one of you or the other, whatever the case is. So there's 2 questions. Just let me know if you agree with Anna or David. All right?
I'm going on a 0% with David.
All right.
That's what I'm going to guess.
So these fall into the family and home category.
Vacuuming.
Are they vacuum questions?
They are
Because
not.
that's not fair.
They're
Okay.
not. They're not. Well, first question. I'll start with you, David. What should you do with a swollen food can?
Throw it away.
Okay. What do you say, Anna?
Ooh, open it and then throw it away.
All right. 2 different answers. David's saying, don't do anything, just throw it away.
Throw it away.
Anna is saying, open it first before you dispose of it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I will
All right.
add the caveat, depending on the expiration date, you might still be able to bring it back to get a replacement, but either way, you want no business with that.
All right. So let me know who you agree with, Anna or David. One of them is not right. So,
One of them is right.
well, that's the other way of saying it.
Okay.
One's correct. All right. True or false? If someone is poisoned by an unknown substance,
Oh, no.
do you induce vomiting immediately? True or false? So if they are poisoned by an unknown substance, do you make them throw up right away?
Anna, you can take that one.
Anna, is that
Since I
true or
went
false?
first last time.
So the statement is that you do make them throw up. True or false?
I feel like it's a trick. I'm going to say false. Because what if it's like caustic or something and burns your throat up?
Yes. I feel like I'm obligated to say true
You
here.
have to say true now. Yeah.
So, but I'm in team false. But for the nature of this game, I will
You're going to
say
say true? All right.
Sure.
All right. So that's question 2.
Okay.
Got to say if you're with David or Anna.
Make them yak it up. Now,
One
was
of them
this-
is definitely wrong.
Was it a was
Thanks,
this a
Jeff.
liquid substance or is
It's
this
an
like a
It's
Lego?
an unknown substance.
Unknown substance.
Oh.
So you probably didn't see them ingest it. Do you make them throw it up? You just know, like, they're turning colors. It's poisonous.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Can you throw it up out of their nose? Because
Exactly.
we haven't had issues with the ingestion so much as the
You've shared detail.
nasal penetration.
Yes.
All right.
What?
All right. So let me know your thoughts. We got a bunch of Today Manufacturing swag. We're more than happy to send out.
Okay. I'm happy the trivia's back.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
He needs some
we
more.
can-
He needs some more joy in his life.
Do you
Obviously,
need-
if
I'll see if I
vacuuming,
can see if I
is-
can find some more 1988 work trivia decks to supplement the show with.
I like it.
just seems like he's in a weird place right now with the vacuuming. So
I'm going to eat a lot of food. I'm going to play checkers and I'm going to vacuum. That's my Thanksgiving. I've never been happier.
okay, that's
If
great
you're
to
happy,
hear.
we're happy, David.
That's right. We're all happy. And you know what? I forgot to say it, but I'm thankful for both of you guys in this podcast. You know what?
Do you have to say it now?
We're a real family
Okay,
here.
all right.
We're a real
No,
family.
we are though.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, and yeah, we're obviously thankful for all the viewers and listeners.
Of course.
I mean, you're the only reason this exists, so
Yeah.
thankful for you guys as well.
For sure.
Before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You could also subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine. Give us a thumbs up there as well. Make sure you can join us every time we go live. All right, you can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. For Jeff Reinke and Anna Wells, I'm David Manty. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we will see you next week.